American history is filled with disturbing and unexplainable events, but few have left such a chilling and unforgettable mark on the human psyche as that of Edward Gein. From the outside, Gein was an unassuming man who lived a quiet life on his farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin. A little strange perhaps, but harmless. However, beneath this ordinary facade lay a world of morbid fascination, a disturbed mind and unspeakable horrors that offered a terrifying glimpse into the darkest corners of the human mind. In 1957, when authorities raided his isolated farmhouse, they stumbled upon a scene that challenged the very limits of human comprehension. It was then that a journey into Gein's chilling world began. This bone-chilling journey will take us into the depths of the human soul, forcing us to confront the nature of evil and the darkness that can lurk in the hearts of those closest to us. Gein's story serves as a haunting reminder of the darkness that can hide beneath the veneer of normalcy. Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27, 1906, in La Crosse, Wisconsin. His father, George, was a weak and ineffective man who struggled to hold down a steady job and often turned to alcohol for solace. His mother, Augusta, was a domineering and religious woman who instilled in her two sons a warped view of the world as a sinful and corrupt place. The children were rarely allowed to leave the house and were subjected to their mother's strict religious teachings and constant criticism. Augusta in particular had a strong hold on Edward, instilling in him a deep-seated hatred for women. Gein's childhood was marked by abuse and isolation, which led him to become a withdrawn and peculiar teenager. He struggled to fit in with his peers and was often ridiculed for his odd behavior and strange fascinations with death and the human body. In 1940, when his father George died of heart failure brought on by alcoholism, Edward's already unstable world was further shaken. His mother Augusta's death devastated Edward deeply, leaving him alone and depriving him of the woman who had shielded him from the outside world. After his mother's death, Edward Gein was left completely alone on the large and dilapidated farm. His younger brother Henry grew increasingly concerned about Edward's increasingly erratic behavior and his growing fixation on local women. The brothers often had violent arguments. One of these arguments ended with Henry's death in a fire that started under suspicious circumstances related to Edward's visit to his mother's grave. As the years passed, Gein withdrew further into himself, immersing himself in his strange hobbies and interests. His fascination with death and human anatomy grew. He began making nighttime visits to local cemeteries, digging up recently deceased corpses and taking them back to his home. There, driven by necrophilia and a perverse obsession, he would perform horrific acts on the corpses. He expanded his gruesome collection with macabre souvenirs he crafted from the skin, bones and organs of the corpses he stole. Gein's fixation on his mother continued even after her death, fueling his disturbing actions. In the late 1940s, struggling to cope with the death of his mother, Augusta, Edward Gein embarked on a path consumed by a disturbing and intense fascination with necrophilia and human anatomy. Under the cover of darkness, Gein began to make his secret trips to local cemeteries. It was a perverse desire to exhume recently buried corpses that drove him. He often targeted recently deceased middle-aged women, especially those who physically resembled his mother. Gein would take the stolen corpses back to his secluded farmhouse. Here, he would perform horrific acts on the bodies, interacting with them in ways that defied imagination. Their skin, bones, and body parts he saw as perverse trophies. These he would then use to decorate his home, transforming it into a disturbing den of human remains. People began reporting hearing strange noises and movements at night, particularly in graveyards, sightings that were linked to Gein's presence. Grave robbing was no longer enough to satisfy him. Gein's twisted fantasies compelled him to take the next terrifying step, one that would soon lead to his capture and a reign of terror that would forever be etched in the annals of human history. The craftsman of horror, grotesque souvenirs made of human skin. Gein's grave robbing not only fueled his necrophiliac desires, but also transformed him into a perverse craftsman, fashioning disturbing artifacts and souvenirs from the bodies he stole. Among Gein's most unsettling creations was his use of human skin, which he carefully peeled and tanned to create lampshades, chair coverings, and even a suit. These gruesome objects were meticulously placed throughout his home. His house had become a perverse shrine adorned with a collage of human remains. In addition to human skin, Gein incorporated human bones into his disturbing art. He used skulls to make bowls and coasters. He transformed everyday objects into macabre keepsakes, completely disregarding the horrific nature of the remains he had stolen. A belt fashioned from human skulls was perhaps one of his most striking creations. Police would later discover that many of Gein's souvenirs were crafted from stolen corpses. However, the origins of some items raised even more disturbing questions. The disappearance of Mary Hogan. In 1954, Mary Hogan, a bartender at a tavern outside Plainfield, vanished without a trace. Hogan's disappearance sent shockwaves through the small town. Hogan was a trusted and well-liked member of the community. All that remained was a bloody scene and unanswered questions. Authorities were unable to connect Hogan's disappearance to Gein. Edward was known as an odd but harmless recluse. Gein confessed to killing Hogan. Hogan's disappearance lingered as an unsolved mystery in the community. A gruesome discovery: the Bernice Worden murder and Gein's capture. In November 1957, Edward Gein's reign of terror in the quiet town of Plainfield, Wisconsin, came to an abrupt and horrifying end with the disappearance of Bernice Worden, a hardware store owner in Plainfield. Worden was last seen at her store on the afternoon of November 16th, and her son Frank, who was also Plainfield's deputy sheriff, raised the alarm when he couldn't find his mother at her place of business. The fact that money had been taken from the store's cash register and bloodstains were found on the floor pointed to something sinister, and it immediately led Frank to suspect Gein. Authorities decided to go to Gein's isolated farm to investigate, and it was there that they stumbled upon a scene that defied even the most twisted minds. Upon entering the farmhouse, officers discovered the body of Bernice Worden. She had been decapitated, mutilated, and her skin had been completely removed. Her legs had been hung upside down from a rafter, her torso dressed like a deer. Gein was arrested in connection with Bernice Worden's murder, and during subsequent questioning, he confessed to the chilling details of his horrific actions. In the halls of madness, trial and confinement to a mental institution. Edward Gein's trial for the murder of Bernice Worden began in November 1957, and quickly became a national media frenzy. As the details of Gein's depraved actions came to light, the public was horrified. Defense attorneys argued that Gein was legally insane. The jury found Gein legally insane, and he was committed to a mental institution. Gein remained an object of fascination and intrigue throughout his time in the mental institution. A lasting legacy: Gein's chilling impact on popular culture. Edward Gein's unimaginable crimes and disturbing obsessions have inspired countless films, books, and works of art. The character of Norman Bates in Hitchcock's Psycho was largely inspired by Gein. Characters like Hannibal Lecter and Leatherface have also drawn from Gein's legacy. Gein's story continues to serve as a chilling reminder of the depths of the human psyche,